Welcome to part 2 of our video to demonstrate using the Qt ListWidget. In part 1, we laid out the dialog to use with our Python program. This is what it looked like. We did forget to do one thing when we were laying that out, so I'll go ahead and add an additional button here just so we can fully exercise this this list widget. So I'm going to add one more push button to the dialog, and that's going to be a push button that will allow us to clear the list widget. So always nice to be able to clear it. So I drug a push button to the dialog. I'm going to rename that push button by triple clicking there, and I'm going to name this push button clear, and I'm making sure to hit enter. Okay, there's push button clear. Let's change its name, or text, sorry, change its text to ampersand CLEAR. That gives us a keyboard shortcut by holding the Alt key down. And it looks like we've got plenty of room here now where folks can roll through these. So there's push button clear. That's what we just added. We'll go ahead and save our list widget demo dialog, and then I'll go ahead and close it and reopen it just to be sure that the name saved as it should. So everything looks good here. We're ready to write some Python code. So I've already downloaded the GUI template.ui and the GUI template.py file. So let's go ahead and start Tawny. Remember, I got those files from Blackboard, so I'm going to go out to my flash drive and go grab that. So it's my flash drive. We'll go to the RCCC folder and 2020 Spring and Module 3. There's our list box. There's the GUI template.py file. Okay, so let's go ahead and change the comments and resave this. This is going to be named ListWidget Demo. To match the UI file that we created. And so files, save as, and it's going to make me go to that folder all over again, it looks like. Let's see. Get back in the media here. Okay, so this is where we're going to save it. So I'm saving it with the .py extension. Just know that graphical Python files, some folks will save them as a PYW. And there are a few other extensions there that folks use for graphical Python files. I'm just going to save it as a PY. So we've got this saved in the same folder location as our UI file. We need to go ahead and change the file, the UI file that it's loading, to match the one that we just created in part 1. That had all the widgets on there. List widget demo.ui. So gonna go ahead and save our file again here, and just to make sure that we haven't messed anything up, we can run this right now, because if it finds the ListWidget demo UI file and shows us that even though the only button right now that we have connected is push button exit, we'll know that everything's working. So I just saved it, I saved it and ran it. So you can see here's Justin, Josiah, and Felicia. Here's the label widget that we laid out. Here's our line edit, and there are all of our push buttons. So the only one that's active right now that we have connected is the exit. So there you go. So we saw that work. So let's talk a little bit about how to add an item to a list widget. So first thing we need to do is we'll use the add item method, and also we'll need to connect the add button that we laid out. So right here in this empty space in our constructor, remember this is the constructor for our class, our myForm class. So let's go ahead and connect that add button. Now here's something you can do to shorten. Normally everything that we connect, we would do this, wouldn't we? Self.ui. Well, if you don't want to have to type all that, you can. There is a shortcut. We can make ourselves a global item variable called SUI, and then have it, watch this, SUI equals self.ui. Now this is something that we discovered trying to shorten up how much typing we had to do in the fall seeded version of this class. So now, instead of having to type self.ui every time we want to do something, I can just do this, SUI . That's the same thing now. It means the same thing as self.ui. Push button add clicked is the signal. Connect, and we're going to write ourselves an add method, self.add method. Okay, so this right here is functionally the same as that. So it may actually cause the code to run a little bit faster if you do this, because every time Python sees a dot, it's got to dereference that object and look at all the properties for that object and attributes. So if we do it here, this should theoretically run faster than this, because this has 2 dots in it. This really only has 1, so it should run twice as fast. So we are connecting to an add method, so we need to write that add method. So def add method. Okay, every method of an object gets past self. So now let's use the add item method, and you'll see we don't have to type quite as much. SUI dot list widget add item. Line edit text, get the text, whatever's in that line edit. Now, you notice I saved type in self.ui.listWidget and I saved type in self.ui.lineEdit. So we're using that a lot already, aren't we? And then here, once we've added that to the list widget, we probably want to clear that that line edit out so that it's not still hanging around whatever we added to our list widget. So line edit dot clear, that'll clear out whatever's in there, and then we can set our focus back to it. Set focus lets us put the cursor back right in that line edit again. Okay, so at this point we have hopefully a working add method. You can see we connected the signal, the click signal from push button add to the add method slot right there. Here's where we wrote the add method, and here's what we're doing. So gonna save this code and run it. Okay, so here's our line edit right here where it says enter an item. So we've got a few more folks in the class. Let's see who else we could add. I know we've got a Michael in here, so I type Michael in. Here's our add push button. When I click that add push button, if all this code that we just wrote works, we should see Michael appear in our list widget. And there you go. So Michael's in there now. You notice that we cleared it out after we hit the add button. It cleared out Michael out of the list widget, and it also placed our cursor back in that list widget. That's what the set focus did. So now we can exit. Let's go ahead and connect up our clear button. That's an easy one. You saw that we had a clear button that we added at the start of this second video. Okay, so we've got a clear method that we're taking the clicked signal from our push button clear, and we're gonna have a clear method, so that slot will create that slot right here, def clear method. And remember, every method of an object, the first thing that gets passed to it is a reference to self. Okay, so this clear method does one thing: it clears the list widget. So I could actually just do some copy and paste right here, couldn't I? Okay, self.ui.listWidget.clear. And that should give us a clear method now. Let's run this again. Okay, here we have three folks that we added at design time. So when I hit clear, they should all go away. And they did. So our clear method's working now. So let's do an edit method. An edit method. Our edit method will, when we click this button, will let us take one of these folks. Now you notice here I can select folks in that list widget while the program's running. We're going to write some code that when we've got somebody selected and we hit edit, it will pop a dialog up, another window up with their name in it, and we can change it. Like maybe we wanted it, instead of Josiah, maybe we wanted it to be Michael or something. So we could edit that and change whatever's here. So let's exit and let's write that edit method. Now, in order to use the QInputDialog, we need a few more things imported to our program up here at the top. If we're going to use an input dialog, we need to import QInputDialog, and we also need the QLineEdit class, and I think that's a capital L. Okay, so we need these two things in order to use this input dialog. So let's go ahead and connect our push button up. Push button edit dot clicked dot connect self dot edit method. Okay, so now let's write an edit method. Okay, so we've got this edit method here. So the first thing we want to do is we want to figure out, we need to know what row we're on inside that list widget so that we can get to that row. So there's a nifty little method that we can use in order to get to that row. self.UI.listWidget.currentRow. This will get us whatever row they're currently clicked is, or whatever row is currently selected. So to use that input dialog, you have to remember that the input dialog actually returns a tuple. A tuple is two items. So it's always going to return, as the first part of the tuple, it's going to return the text, okay, whatever's in there. And the second thing it's going to return is what they have pressed, what button they have pressed. And so text and OK pressed are, when they press the OK button, this is going to get set, and this is going to have the text in it. So now let's actually call that QInputDialog. Okay, QInputDialog.getText. This getText method lets us show the dialog and get the text that they have typed in there. So let's go with that. First thing that we're going to pass to it is a reference to the object, and then this is going to be the title. And then this is going to be the little prompt that shows inside that pop-up dialog. And then we actually are putting a line edit inside there. Just a normal line edit. And this last thing that we're passing to it is just some empty text. So we're telling it that what's in the line edit to begin with is nothing. Okay. So now that we've done that, we can actually check to see if they've pressed the button. If OK pressed, and text is not equal to that. Got our if statement going on. This is going to let us get the item, and you'll see here okay. So let's talk about this. We get the current row. We're going to show this dialog, and then if somebody's going to type whatever they want into this dialog, and then if they type something into it, we're going to get the item from the list widget. This is going to take whatever item we're on currently. It's going to take that item out of the list widget, and it's going to insert this item back into the list widget at that position with whatever text we typed in. So let's see if we can make this work now. See if I typed everything correctly here. It looks like we did, but let's run it. Let's save it first and run it. Okay, let's replace Josiah. Let's replace Josiah with Michael. So I've got Josiah clicked. Gonna click exit. You see there's our input dialog showing up, and let's type Michael. Okay, and click OK. And did we replace Josiah with Michael? So there's a demonstration of the edit functionality. So what we have implemented so far, we've implemented an add, we've implemented an edit that allows us to change stuff in the list widget. The last thing and we've also implemented the clear. We tested that earlier. So the last thing that we're going to implement is the delete method. And that's a pretty easy method, and then I think we need to maybe add a show button over here as well, just so we can play with this picking an item and showing it here in our list, in our label. So we'll add one more button after we get this delete working. Okay, so let's connect up a delete button. Nothing different from what we've been doing here. Okay, the clicked signal from push button delete, and we're connecting it to a method that we're going to write called delete method. So we'll go ahead and put that right here in this little empty spot. I'm going to open up some space there. Delete method. We know that every method of an object gets self passed to it. Okay, so this is going to be a nice little one-line delete method. We can pick a row and delete it. So So whatever the current row is, we'll just use the take item method to get rid of that item. So let's see if this works now. Let's get rid of Felicia. So here I clicked Felicia and delete, and you can see that she's now gone out of the list widget. So we'll exit. That's our delete method. Let's go write ourselves a show. Let's put a push button show on there so we can demonstrate one more thing with this list widget. So I'll add that button right here to the left. So push button show. Okay. We'll go ahead and size it. So I have a push button there, and this is going to triple click, show, enter, push button show. Let's change the text on that to be an ampersand SHOW, enter. So there's our push button show. You see we have that. So we have push button show here. I'll save that and I'll close this, and then I'll reopen it just to make sure that everything took. There's push button show. Okay. Alright, so we have a push button show now. Let's go to our Python code, and if you may recall, let's flip back over to Qt Designer here for a second. Okay, this label right here is called label item. So what I'm going to do is write some code that whoever we have picked here in the list widget, whoever we have picked, when I click the show button, it will take that person that we have clicked and show them here in our label. So you can see that label is named label item. I renamed it because we're using it in code. So label item is what we're working with. So back to this. Let's connect up a show push button. Okay, click signal, push button show, show method. So let's write our show method here. Remember, always pass self there. Okay, so we've got our show method. Let's set the text on that label. Again, that label was label item, self.ui, label item dot set text, right? Okay, and we can get to the whatever the current item is there, s.ui, remember self.ui, list widget dot current item dot text. This is a little bit tricky because we're calling the current item to get the current item, then we're calling the text to get the current text of the current item. So notice the two sets of parentheses here to make this work. So we're setting that labels text to whatever this comes back with. So not but one line of code really, if you don't count the defining of the show method and the connection up here. But let's try that out now. It acts like I may have it still running, but I don't. Looks like I may have hung my system up. Haven't had that happen before, naturally. Let's close this. Okay, and try that one more time. I don't even see Tawny there now. Let's see. Well, we'll start Tawny back. Maybe Tawny decided to crash on us. Okay, so we have our show method here that we were just talking about. Let's run it. Okay, Josiah. When we click the show button, it should show Josiah in our label, and there he is. Okay, so it looks like everything worked except for Tawny. I'm not sure what went on with Tawny there for a moment, but so we've shown you how to show an item, whatever item you want. Okay, we've shown you how to add an item to a list widget. We also saw how to add items at design time. We showed you how to edit an item, how to delete an item, and how to clear everything in the list widget. So that's the end of this two-part video on using a list widget with Qt. Good luck.